You will appreciate that we have a representative from the Office of the Ministers of Small Business Development. And we'll be hearing about revitalizing Africa's SMEs. And this is by the Deputy Director General in the Office of Small Business Development, Dr. Aaron Ramodumo, who is the Acting Deputy Director General, and he is responsible for sector policy and research at the Department of Small Business Development, representing the Minister of Small Business this afternoon. Dr. Aaron, are you with us this afternoon?
Yep, I'm with you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Dr. Ramodumo. We are really in an audience of small business owners, and I'm not sure how early you were able to join us to see the interaction on the chat, but majority of our audience this afternoon are small business owners and are really wanting to find out, in the African context, how do we revitalize African SMEs to take hold of their place as employment creation opportunities in our continent, as value creators in our continent. So please, sir, this floor is yours.
Thank you so much. It's revitalization of Africa's small and medium enterprises. The most critical aspect relating to revitalization of Africa's small and medium centered around opportunities. And my presentation basically would provide an antithesis of your commonly referred to as neoliberal or neoclassical school of thought. And these neoclassists and neoliberals are proponents of an economic ideology that advocates for free markets, minimum government interventions, and deregulations. They are saying opportunities are there, and opportunities are very objective. And as a result, there is nothing that stops any other person to seize the moments and seize these opportunities. And I think that ideology in itself, it's a false ideology, or it's a misrepresentation of what, in my view, its realities globally. The neoclassists would always say opportunities are objective and they exist, whether or not individuals recognize these opportunities. And they are assuming that the entrepreneurs or the MSMEs or SMEs have different cognitive ability to recognize these opportunities. They further assume that individuals are entrepreneurial alert, that every person who wants to become a small business is alert or it's aware or knows these opportunities. And the biggest question is, if people are aware and they know about these opportunities, what are the impediments that makes them seize these opportunities? Could it be that it's possibly regulations, or is it because market access, or is it because there is no finance? There is a further assumption that these opportunities are existence out there, and every other person is prepared to take the risks. You know, in business, any other person or every other person should take a little bit of some elements of risks. So these kind of neoliberal or neoclassical theories would be packaged either in the form of a discovery theory, and the discovery theory is basically saying, or is about an individual opportunity nexus. It says it is you, the person, who must go out and discover. And after discovering that opportunity, you create that opportunity. That is the creation theorists that are saying the opportunities recognition, it's out there and it's for these individuals. That these very same individuals do not recognize opportunities, but create such opportunities. If your mind is limited to discovering or recognize opportunity, but you don't create that opportunity, then it does not serve any purpose. When we are asleep, we quite think long and hard. And at times when we wake up, we can't remember exactly what we were thinking. And that the decisions that people make are made based on your expectations. So you take a particular step because you expect a particular outcome. And that opportunities are social constructs and do not exist independent of your perception. And opportunities will come as a result of your expectation. That is what is the foundational basis of neoclassical theories. And I'm saying all these theories are well and good, but as a department, we are coming up with an interventionist theory. We are quite aware that in as much as these theories are out there, your Schumpeter's theory of 1973, it is quite important that the state makes an intervening mechanism to lift up or to bootstrap our MSMEs so that they can move from their levels of informality into a form of formal business. For example, if you look at Zimbabwe, whether you are going to Bulawayo or you are going to Harare, you would find that 70% of businesses are MSMEs, and 60% of the employees are found within the SMMEs. And about 50% of the existing MSMEs are informal. That is, they don't pay tax. And I wonder how countries will survive with a situation where people don't pay tax. We need tax so that we can take people to school, we can pay NSFAS, we can build roads, we can build hospitals, and share hospital facilities with every other person who's found in the land. So my presentation, therefore, it's on that framework, that the understanding itself, there is nothing wrong with these theories, but also my presentation, it's projecting an interventionist approach as to what is it that we can do to revitalize MSMEs within the continent. What are the things that we can do now and beyond to ensure that we grow our small businesses? Of course, as a country or as a continent, we stand at a critical turning point wherein the haves will continue to have and the have-nots will unfortunately continue not to have. And this is a point that we need to break. And the only best way to break it, think of a 25-liter paint, white paint. If you bring a 5 liters of, say, for example, black paint and pour it in the 25 liters, definitely change from white to something else, which I don't know. Think of a zebra. A zebra has 2 stripes. It has a black stripe, it has a white stripe. But if you shoot the black stripe, you are killing the zebra. If you shoot the white stripe, you are killing the zebra. So the only best way is to bring a third by combining those two layers. That is the intervention that I'm talking about. So notwithstanding all this shift, the 30% tariffs as dictated or mentioned or stated by the President of the United States, this has an impact on Lesotho, this has an impact on many other countries in Africa, and in particular, the small businesses. If you think of the jeans that most of the people wear, they are made up in Lesotho because Lesotho has quite a lot of cotton there. They only take them to the USA, they label them, you get your Levi, you get your whatnot, I don't know, and all this. If at all Lesotho is not able, the demand for the tariffs are at 30%, and they're not able to equate that 30%, definitely they will be slow in importing their products. And as such, if America cannot take much as a result of these tariffs, they will have to reduce the number of employees, and that will have a knock-on effect on the existing small businesses. So you can see. So in this country, we envision a continent where MSMEs are empowered. We're making them resilient, and we make them become agents of inclusive growth. My presentation, therefore, hinges on the social impacts, sustainability agenda, and the vision for Africa. What is the kind of Africa that we want to see? We've had Agenda 2030, the National Development Plan, and this is not the only South African plan. Every other country in Africa has the 2030 plan. And now we are 5 years into 2030, but what have we achieved? Others would say Africa has achieved a lot. Others may say we have achieved Bogoron. But I've got my own position. I think different countries have made different strides to sustain the businesses within their countries. Now we've got Agenda 2063. What kind of Africa do we want? What lessons can we learn from the existing practices that we do? Fast forward, we now are we move from Millennium Development Goals, I think the previous speaker has indicated as such, into the Sustainable Development Goal. The critical word there is sustainability. How do we sustain a small business person in Zanin, or in Venda, or in Tuba, in KwaZulu-Natal, or somewhere in Pongola, or Free State, in the Eastern Cape, you name it, and all that? What are the things that we need to do in the context of the G20 that we are entering into? South Africa is hosting the G20. How do we imbue the spirit of solidarity? How do we make the unequal world equal? And how do we then create businesses that will thrive beyond the now and become sustainable? So what then the SMEs in Africa should be doing is that we should look at the existing statistics. 90% of businesses are in Africa, as we are told, or we are informed statistically and through various literatures, mainly MSMEs. So 90%. And these businesses serve towards sustainable development, particularly in rural and marginalized areas. I come from Limpopo, Mujaji in particular, and I sometimes do some work, research-related work, in the area of Mopani. In every small town, early in the morning, up until the sunset, you would find women sailing by the streets, trying to survive. They are doing this because that is the opportunity that they would want to annex, they've discovered, and they're taking actions on. But without the support, they are going nowhere. So these people are faced with structural challenges, such as limited to finance, digital exclusion. One little person in the small town of Guyane does not have knowledge of digital marketing. That then becomes a problem because it limits that person to that environment within which he or she is confined. And as such, if you are not able to market your business, you will have low productivity because once you do your garment and nobody buys, obviously you are not going to sell, and that discourages you. So on the aspect of the social impact of it, we have identified that youth and women entrepreneurship programs can drive change. In South Africa, you have 32.9% unemployment rate. And that is not the expanded definition as by Stats SA. If we're to look at the expanded definition of statistics of unemployment in this country, it's hovering around 42%. But look at China. They are only 5% unemployed. The rate of unemployment is at 5%. And they are beginning to industrialize their villages. In South Africa, you finish school. If you are in the former homelands, you are jumping into N1, you are going to Gauteng to look for a job. And I always say to myself, if tomato sauce is made in Germiston, just outside Johannesburg, I've never seen a farm there. Why should we then consistently take a raw product from Limpopo in Zanin and come and do tomato sauce in Isando? Why don't we do it there and create jobs for these youth and women? Because the majority of those people that are on the farms are women and youth, and yet they produce tomatoes and take them to Gauteng. So we also need to transform the informal sector. If you go to villages in Limpopo and elsewhere, and I keep giving example of Limpopo because that is where I come from, shops were closed at some point. But now you've got other communities or individuals from other countries that are opening up spaza shops and are doing well, even though there are stories around the kind of products that they provide. We would want to deliberately create an opportunity for these young women and young men to seize the moment, create market for them so that they are able, and finance them and train them so that they are able to generate some income. The third point that I want to talk about is our ability to do these things that I'm mentioning now are dependent on our NISET framework. The National Integrated Small Enterprise Development. This framework is a blueprint that guides us as to what are the things that the department has to do. This includes, amongst others, training of MSMEs, financing them, and also putting up some infrastructure where there is a need, depending on the needs of an entrepreneur. But also, we are not able to do this thing alone. We are also doing this in conjunction with the private companies. We are entering into MOUs or MOAs with various institutions so that we can drive this process together. We are doing all these things because these aspects that I'm mentioning here are aligned to Agenda 2063, the Sustainable Development Goals, and the G20 priorities. If you look at the first goal of Agenda 2063, it says a prosperous Africa based on inclusive growth. If you just oppose that goal itself against the neoclassical theories, you will never achieve inclusive growth, because the neoclassical theories, it's about free market economy. Everyone for himself and God for us all. But also, sustainability is about the environment. We need to create an environmental resilient economies. Hence, we support what is commonly referred to as, green of the green technologies, so that we do not adversely hinder the environmental aspect relating to the areas where we live, and that which should be climate resilient. Otherwise, you see how climate changes these days, and this has an effect. KZN, floods, Eastern Cape, you know what has happened. So the environment needs to be taken care of. So it is imperative, therefore, that if you look at what the Department of Forestry and Fisheries does, clean environment is healthy environment, and therefore that is important. And that talks to goal number 7 of Agenda 2063. If you look at goal number 10, it says we need to put or build a strong Africa, resilient and influential global player. How then do we begin to assert ourselves as Africa through SMEs? Are we still prepared in the next 20, 30 years to take our raw material and export it into developed nations and import them expensively? I don't think that is what we want to do. We need to change the narrative, and we need to change the mindset. And that is the intervention that, in a small way, DSBD, or Department of Small Business, is able to do. We also contribute to Sustainable Development Goal number 1 and 8, poverty reduction through SME jobs. If someone is a cobbler or a shoe mender and is able to sustain himself, surely he can employ 1 or 2 persons. In my youngest age, I used to work for my father's farm during school holidays. It helped me understand what my dad was doing and how I can make life beyond my retirement in government. If my father was able to employ 18 women on his farm, surely he had created opportunities for these people and a little bit of injection in the form of payments that he made to them. So goal number 1 is about poverty reduction. There are so many ways, and the department has various programs through which we try and contribute towards job creation and poverty reduction. We are mainly and demonstratively and deliberately empowering women, because if you check in the country and in some other countries, the majority of people who are employed are men as opposed to women. In the past, we used to be told a woman remains at home, a man goes out to work to feed the family and all that. That narrative has to be changed. And that is in relation to goal number 5 of empowering women. Infrastructure development talks to sustainable development goal number 9. And it's important, therefore, that we build infrastructure. For those of you who know a place called Louis Trichardt, as you drive from Louis Trichardt, which was previously known as Songozwi, around 1800, to a place called Toyando, there is a place called Chakuma. This is the place where the department has put up an infrastructure. When it rains, women would not be able to assemble there and sell their produce. But today, there is that infrastructure that the department has built. And they are able to sell their produce 24/7, feed their families, employ 1 or 2 people to assist the main stall owner there, and all that. So the critical role of MSMEs in solving economic challenges relates to one, joblessness is one of the challenges. A lot of young boys and girls in rural areas have gone to school, they don't have job opportunities. We encourage them to work collectively so that we can train them, and we can as well empower them and create opportunities for them by financing them so they can start their business. So the role that the department plays tries to intervene in creating a balance, equality balance, although we may not necessarily entirely deal with inequality. We are deliberate and intent insofar as wanting to improve rural circumstances and township areas, and hence the spaza shop support that is aimed at supporting small businesses in townships and rural areas. So as I conclude, the Africa that we want may or will be realized through revitalization of Africa's MSMEs, and this in itself, it's, in my view, a developmental imperative. We may be in a position, if we empower these rural men and women, the youth in particular, you may to some degree hold the massive exodus of people from one country to the other. For some reason, this creates some social ills which are not unwanted. So it is through Africa's impactful leadership and targeted innovation for sustainable action that DSBD, like any other department responsible for small business development in Africa, can create the small business-led transformation. I had an opportunity to meet with some Chinese last week, and they were indicating that the backbone of China's economy is on small business. Big businesses are no longer there. Look at Joburg today. We had huge warehouses. Those companies are gone. And what you see is music in our ears on Sundays. They've become churches or something else, or place where people can hide and do funny stuff. So, but if you empower a young man, a young woman, you are empowering these people into the future. So we call upon, as a department, all CEOs and policymakers and those that have finances and entrepreneurs as well, to partner with DSBD to shape the Africa that we want. The Africa that is inclusive, the Africa that is innovative, the Africa that is climate resilient, and the Africa that is thriving. I therefore recommend that policies should focus on financing these SMEs, training them, creating a continental small and medium enterprise innovation fund in collaboration with the African Union and the African Continental Free Trade Area. You go to Maravastad or you go to Pretoria Station, people are now able to to send money to their countries of origin through various digital platforms. They are doing some work here and they are able to feed their families. But we can go beyond that. If these people are trained, if these people are skilled, they can do business. If these people have learned, they can really change the world. We need to scale regional SME platforms. We need to strengthen our impact measurement to align with global frameworks. Finally, revitalizing Africa's small and medium enterprises might not change the world. It could change the world for Africa. I thank you.